sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast powered by Hoopah Grading Company. My name is Brandon, and I am your host. Today, we've got a great episode for you. We're actually stepping out of the C-suite for a minute. We're going to go down to the floor where the work actually gets done. So we've got one of the industry's latest up-and-comers representing the next generation of construction leaders with us today. We've got, we'll be getting the dirt from Josh Bradshaw, a construction materials group manager with ECS, Engineering Consulting Services. ECS is a leader in geotechnical, construction materials, environmental, and facilities engineering. With over 2,500 employees and 80 offices and testing facilities, ECS is consistently recognized as one of the best engineering and environmental firms in the country. Josh, welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast.
I appreciate you having me, Brandon.
So, were you voluntold for this thing? Or
a little bit.
You were?
It was pitched to me, and I didn't oppose. So Caitlin said, "All right, let's go. Let's do it."
Did you take that as an honor or as punishment?
An honor.
Good.
Yeah, because if she would have asked some of the other folks in the office, I don't know if I would have let them on the microphone. So I kind of took it as an honor.
Well, evidently somebody thinks you've got a great story to tell. I'm excited to be able to share it today.
That.
So let's start with you. Tell me where you're from and how you found yourself in the construction industry.
Sure. So I'm from a little town in between Greensboro and Durham called Mebane, North Carolina.
I know where Mebane is.
Yep. So since you're familiar, those of you who aren't, it's a really small town. They built the Tanger outlets there maybe 10 years ago or so. So when I was there was nothing there. A couple of stop signs, a couple of stoplights type of town. So lived there as a kid, wanted to go to school. Well, that was the thing to do, was to go to school. So I wanted to do engineering, and it's a funny story how I got into that too. But Raleigh was a little bit too close, so I wanted to get a little bit further away from home. So came to UNC Charlotte and did civil engineering at UNC Charlotte.
So you're a 49er.
That's right.
Awesome school.
Yeah, it's grown so much even since I've been there, so... it's an awesome school for sure.
So you mentioned that there was a story there. Why engineering?
Sure. So my whole life I wanted to be a lawyer. Sorry, let me take that back. When I was 4 years old, I wrote the president, it was Bill Clinton at the time, and told him I wanted to be the president of the United States. And I didn't have a good reason. I just wanted to be the president. And then through my
was this a school assignment, or you just just sat down in your room one day and said, "I'm sending a letter"?
Yeah, I did. And I don't know if my mom sent it to Bill Clinton or not, but I got a letter back. And again, I don't know if she wrote it, so I'm sure my mom will listen to this and she'll tell me if she did write it or not. But I was pumped, and I wanted to be the president after that. I wanted to change the world. And then I realized that you can't just be the president. You have to do something until you become the president. And I wanted to be a lawyer. So that's just what everybody did before they were president. So all through middle school, high school, I was going to be a lawyer. And then I realized what lawyers did for a living, and I didn't want to do it. So I was in a senior class in high school, and the assignment was, hey, what are you going to be? And I, at that time, knew I didn't want to be a lawyer. So I just Googled, I'm good at math. What profession should I get in that makes a lot of money? An engineer popped up, and the rest is history. I thought for sure you were going to say the letter came back and said, look, you're not cut out for president. Why don't you be an engineer? Nope.
But you sat down and said, hey, Google professions, and I got engineer.
That's it.
And that was, from that point on, that was your direction. That was
Right.
where you were heading.
Right, because I wasn't going to be a lawyer, and I knew I wasn't going to be the president.
Did you have family in construction? Did you have family of engineers?
Nothing at all. In fact, I grew up we were poor. I was single mom, 4 of us. Nobody in my family had been, to 4 years, no engineers, no architects, none of that. I was going to be different. I wanted to improve my life and improve the life of the ones that come after me. So I knew I was going to go to college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And engineering is where I landed.
What a great story. I love that.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Do you still have the letter
I don't.
from Clinton?
I wish I did.
He could have used a lawyer.
That's true.
Actually.
Yeah. Definitely could have used a lawyer. I think it was before all that when I wrote him. Maybe that had something to do with why I changed my mind. I don't know. Admittedly, I don't know why I changed my mind.
I love that you ended up where you did. And I love that you that the story was actually that simple. That
Yep.
it was, hey, this is something I'm going to set my sights on, and I'm going to do everything I can to achieve it.
That's right. And again, it was silly. Hey, what can I make a lot of money for? I like math, and that was a silly search. But at the end of the day, I felt like a glove right where I was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So,
I think it's interesting when people think about construction. It's often very easy to overlook all the roles that make up a large construction company.
Sure.
You think of the project managers, you think of the operators, you think of the foremen. Those are the ones that come to mind. But there are so many roles within a large company that get overlooked. You've got, here at Hoopah, we've got an accounting team, we've got a finance team, safety team, team development, marketing, estimating, survey, our shop team, like all
Sure.
these different roles that support the construction operation. And I think the same it applies on a construction site.
Absolutely.
Right? We see all the heavy equipment, we see the cranes, we see the buildings going up, but you don't see the supporting cast members
Sure.
that make up that dance.
Absolutely.
And I would say that the engineering side of that is one of that. That's not a client-facing or forward-facing role all the time, but it's critical.
Sure.
Absolutely critical to what we do.
Absolutely. And to that point, that's kind of the chip on your shoulder as a geotechnical engineer, and that's what my specialty is. We're the unsung heroes of the project, right? So we do the design on the foundation. We get together, drill some borings, decide how the building is going to stand, right? How it looks, that's the architect. How it physically stands is the structural engineer. But without the geotechnical engineer, none of that happens. But more often than not, almost every time, you never hear who the geotechnical engineer is. It's the
Right.
structural engineer or the architect or stuff like that. So
I've heard our owner, Brian McManus, he talks about it all the time. He talks about the importance of what you do for the client.
Sure.
And how important that partnership is for us. But he describes it as we're the cooks,
sure.
but you're writing the cookbook.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and even more so, we're there kind of along the way, and you alluded to that as well. On the construction site, we're there not necessarily to say, hey, here's how you spread the mayonnaise on the sandwich if you're the cook, right? We just say, hey, here's the mayonnaise, here's the sandwich, here's how we've seen it done in the past. Go to work, right?
Right.
That's how our role on the construction site.
That's great. So how long have you been at ECS?
13 years.
And you are, you see, the construction materials group manager.
That's right.
You ever find yourself going to parties and people say, what do you do? And you say, I'm a construction group materials, construction materials group manager. And they look at you and, what the hell? I used to run into the same thing when I was at Martin Marietta. They said, what do you do? Aggregate salesperson.
Sure.
What? What does that mean? Salesman. Yeah.
Sell
rocks. And that's eventually where it got to. Because,
sure. And they're like, okay, you sell rocks. But you give them the spiel, and then they're like, oh, yeah.
Well, give us the spiel.
Rocks.
So tell us what a construction materials group manager
I
does.
thought you were going to ask, and in the past you ask, hey, how would your wife introduce you, right?
See, Caroline, you told me we needed to drop that. And now people are coming in prepared for it, and I didn't even do it.
So, but I'm going to give it to you anyway.
Let me ask you then. How would somebody else introduce you to a group of strangers?
Sure. So I asked my wife this question, and she told me the same way that she introduces me all the time. And she says, oh, he's a geotechnical engineer, which is quickly followed up by, what does a geotechnical engineer do, right? And she says, well, he plays in the dirt all day and wishes he was an architect. That's what she tells people. And I'm like, that's not... I guess the previous story about the unsung hero comes out in that, but she just kind of makes fun of me and says, I wish I was an architect. So.
Well, so does that fit? I mean, how do you like that? The unsung heroes.
Sure.
Do you feel comfortable in that role?
Absolutely.
You
it's
like
kind of
being
the chip
in the
on
background?
your shoulder, right? The Tom Brady effect, the 5th round pick, right? Never would have made it, never could have made it. Now the greatest of all time. Now I'm not the Tom Brady of the geotechnical engineering world, but that's kind of the role that I take on, and I think a lot of the geotechnical engineers do. We don't want the glory. We want to do all the hard work, and then the building's there because of what we did, but we don't want the glory.
What a great analogy.
Yeah.
And you may be the Tom Brady of the geotechnical world. But from everything I'm hearing, you've been with the company 11 years, and you've had pretty good success over the last 11 years. You've gone through a couple different layers at the company. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I started off as an intern, and again, that's another funny story, how I got into there. I knew somebody that knew somebody, got in, and I was breaking concrete cylinders, which is outside of the dirt world, another portion of the CMT testing. But started as an intern, did a couple of stints there, came on as a full-time technician, worked my way through the technician role, assistant project manager, so forth. A couple years ago, I went out to Memphis and helped open up an ECS office there, saw the opportunity, and then came back to Charlotte, came back home, and have been the department manager and now the group manager for our Charlotte office.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What a great career you've had in a very short time, actually,
sure.
to be in the position you are. How many people or do you oversee on your team?
There's about 60 in our group.
You oversee 60 people?
Sure, well, kind of. I got a big group around me. So my direct supports are about a handful, and then they all have direct supports and so forth. So they don't make it too hard on me. Just a couple of people I got to work with, and then they do all the hard work, of course.
That's a lot. That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
What kind of territory is that, Josh?
So just for the Charlotte office, it's about an hour and a half radius of uptown. Mecklenburg County, pretty much all the surrounding counties around that is what we cover.
Well, so we know you're smart. We know you're intelligent. You've been to school. You've got the degree.
I work hard.
You work hard. That's what I was going to say.
I wouldn't say smart.
What has been the secret to the success you've had?
Sure, hard work, I think. Not taking no for an answer, and admittedly listening, taking notes, and growing from that. A lot of, you mentioned it, kind of worked my way through the ranks, the fake it till you make it mentality, except I'm sitting in the room while you're talking, my former branch manager or my former department manager or whatever is teaching someone else. I'm just kind of a fly on the wall, making sure I'm listening, taking notes to myself. It doesn't apply to me today, but I know someday it will, making that happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? And those things, challenging the status quo, not taking no for an answer, trying to find solutions to problems, and actually listening to the people that have been doing this a long time. And your story's a little different. You didn't grow up listening to that.
Sure, no.
The things that you've learned about this industry, you've learned over the last 11 years.
That's right.
And you had to learn it from people that have been doing it for a long time.
Sure.
So tell me about that piece of it. Not coming from a construction background, not having that experience growing up. Has that been difficult to you strike me as somebody that kind of
absolutely
fits well in that?
Sure, and it's kind of, I was probably supposed to be, working with my hands, working in the field, doing that whole thing, and I still wanted that because that's what I knew. And getting into the geotechnical phase or the construction material phase of it, I still get to go out into the field. I get to get my boots dirty. I get to make those recommendations, pick up, smell, lick the soil. I'm just kidding about licking the soil, but geotechnical engineers are weird. But all of the above, and I get to actually get out there and do it, right? So I still get that aspect of it and what I was supposed to do, but at the same time wanting to better for myself, better for my kids, better for the generations to come after me, wanting more than that. That's where that other part comes in and the hard work comes in. And so the doing the physical labor part is easy for me. It's working hard to bridge the gap the other way.
I think that is that's a great story that I'm glad we're able to tell today. Is we've got people that are listening to this and they're considering getting into the construction industry and making that a career. You're a perfect example of someone that got in on the ground floor. You came in as an intern.
That's right.
And now you're leading a group of 60 people and a lot of opportunity to continue moving up in the company.
Sure.
And your boss is nominating you for this podcast because they think you've got an incredible story and it has inspired others to want to do the same. So,
sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Glad we're getting to tell that today, and I hope folks are listening. I started the same. I was a laborer on a asphalt paving crew.
Sure.
All through high school, and it's hard at that age to see how you can make it to that level that you
Absolutely.
envision ending your career at.
Sure.
When you're starting here, but it
Right.
can be done. It can be done through hard work.
Absolutely. Hard work and a little bit of patience, for sure. I've been told I'm a patient person, but a little bit of patience.
You are a patient person?
I've been told that, yeah.
Are most engineers patient?
I would say so, maybe.
Yeah, I think you have to be.
Yeah.
That's why I cannot be an engineer.
Yeah, it takes just a little bit of patience.
So talk to me a little bit about this. Is this is a unique relationship, and I
Sure.
want to talk about that because we work for the same people.
Absolutely.
We have the same clients.
Yep.
And where some people, I'm sure, look at that as, all right, we're knocking heads sometimes, right? We've got. Do you ever find yourself in a situation where maybe the contractor looks at you and says, man, you're in my way. You're keeping me from being able to do what I want to do. And they see you as the enemy instead of a resource.
Absolutely, all the time. And that's kind of the bridge I want to, the gap I want to bridge, right? Because, yes, we're all in the job site and we're working side by side. We're working together towards a common goal. But it's not always us two with the same ideas or the same way that we think we're going to get to that outcome. And as a testing firm, sometimes even, on the grading contractor side, hey, this is the way I've done it for 50 years, right? I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard that, and I haven't. But one day I know I'm going to say, well, I've been doing this for 50 years too, right? But they look at me and they see, all right, well, this guy hadn't been doing it as long as I have. I've only been in the industry for 11 years, right? So he doesn't know what he's talking about. But there's new innovative things that we can do together, things that I can teach you just as much as you can teach me, and that we can get the same goal across. We can bridge that gap and say, hey, we both work for this client who wants this product. They want it faster. They want it cheaper. They want it, all of the above. The further along in the process we go, the shorter time we get to do it and the cheaper that they want to make it. So it's working together as a group instead of working against each other. And again, I'm not telling you how to do your job. You're not telling me how to do my job. But at the same time, we're working together to get to that end goal. So that's the bridge the gap that I want to bridge by what we do as consultants rather than testing firms. Yeah, sure, we test the soils, but we're trying to be consultants to not only the contractor, but the client, the grading contractor, everybody involved. Now, do I know all the answers? Absolutely not. I'll say, out of the left side of my mouth, I've been doing this a long time, and on the right side, I haven't been doing it long enough, right? So it's the knowing, hey, you guys provide value as a contractor or a grading contractor. We provide value as a consultant. Now let's work together for a common outcome so that we can get it done cheaper, faster, and all the above.
That's the approach. That's the approach. Let's work together. I'm not telling you how to do it.
Right.
Your way, yes, maybe it's worked for 50 years, but let me show you another way to do this.
Sure.
And I think that's why the partnership that we've enjoyed with ECS has been so good, is that we don't look at it as we're working against each other. That's the team, that client,
sure,
geotechnical and our team, like that is the team, the site team.
That's
and
right.
We've got to work together to figure out how we can deliver the best product that possible to the client.
That's right. That's exactly right. And teaming up and doing that together, as opposed to feeling confrontational because we didn't do it the way you wanted to do it, or you didn't do it the way we wanted to do it, or something like that.
And it becomes a finger pointing contest.
That's exactly right.
So how do you bridge that gap? You talked about that's the vision, right? That's where you want it to go. We live in this better dirt world where everybody is hugging each other and we're all working together for the same thing. How do you do
making
that?
Money. So I think the best thing is, and the best advice I could give is when a problem arises, there's going to be problems on the job site. That's construction. Again, we've all learned that if we've been in the industry. When that problem arises, you listen to my way of thinking and what I think we should do, and then I'm going to listen to you on what you think we should do. And then sometimes we're going to meet in the middle. Sometimes your way is going to be best. Sometimes my way is going to be best. But at the end of the day, we understand if we pick mine, that's nothing against you, and if I pick yours, it's nothing against me. At the end of the day, liability is the important thing, and who gets blamed, where the fingers get pointed at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that we're in a group together so that there's no finger pointing around the room. All of us came to this decision together. We listened to everybody's ideas together, and then that's how we came up with what we recommend or the path forward.
Talk to me about a time. Can you recall an example of where that didn't play out that way?
Absolutely. Let me think.
And you don't have to name any names.
Sure.
But just give me an example of where not having that in place really made it disastrous for the project and for the client.
Sure. Yeah. So we were dealing with an issue where there's natural groundwater on the job site, right? And nothing, I didn't put it there, you didn't put it there, none of us put it there, but we have to deal with it. And we have to put some fill where the natural water is, and the soils are soft because it's got water that's run over it for years and years and years. The answer is not to cut those soils out. The answer is we got to fill on top of them, and how do we do it? So we've got 10 different ideas in the room and 10 different ways that it's been done in the past. And again, keeping cost and timing, how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost and if it's even feasible in mind. So pulling all that together, and on the 10th or 11th idea, even a couple of those that were implemented and didn't work, and we had to start back from square one. And you can imagine how frustrating that is. The guys work on something for 2 or 3 days, it doesn't work, and we have to come back and do it over again. I think this was a unique scenario where everybody in the room acknowledged that it wasn't typical, but still everybody was getting frustrated because it wasn't working, type of thing. In the end, we came up with an idea that everybody bought into, put it in. Again, in this particular case, there was a huge amount of fill, and I won't get too deep into the weeds on the specifics, but it was a huge amount of fill, very atypical, and we all worked on it together and came out with a plan. And then after the third or fourth try, which, again, the owner acknowledged that we had 3 or 4 tries on it, not the best scenario for them, but understood what the scenario was, and then we got it finally. So...
yeah, that's frustrating. That's frustrating on both sides there. So
exactly.
Yes, you've got to work together to get through that.
That's right. And again, after kind of all the differences were settled, and we all focused on, all right, well, this is what happened last time. This is why it didn't work. This is what happened last time. This is why it didn't work. All right, let's get together and work on this together. That's when we finally came up with the path forward. Everybody bought in. Everybody wanted to do. You know, it's hard when you don't want to do what you're being told to do. It's hard to be motivated to do it the right way, right? So maybe there was some of that, and maybe that caused the failure on the first couple ones. I don't know, but once we all bought in and we all decided, hey, this is a good idea. Who remembers who it came from? We didn't remember, right? It was all just one common goal, and we pushed forward and got it done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I imagine that your team can identify pretty quick if they're going to be viewed as the dirt cop.
Sure.
Or a partner.
Right. And we try not to do that. I mean, we're there to do a job. And I'm not here saying that, hey, we let everything pass. That's not our goal here. But we got to do our job just like you guys got to do your job, or the general contractor has to do their job. But we can do it in a way that makes it acceptable for everybody.
Absolutely. And you guys do a great job. And now I understand why, because you've got 60 people that you're teaching how to do this. Sure. You've come up with this model that's been successful.
Sure.
And so that's what you want to push forward with everyone else. And I love the approach there. That's what we've got to do.
Sure.
If we're going to, these sites aren't getting any easier.
No, definitely not.
All
the good sites are gone.
Right. So it's only going to become more and more complicated. And for us to be able to do what we need to do for our client, we've got to find a way to work together. And even before we get out there on the site and talking ahead of time and being able to work with the clients on, identifying some of the problems before they become problems.
That's right. And that's a good point. And we even come into the office here and done reading a geotechnical report. Because admittedly, as a geotechnical engineer, I read those things. I'm like, oh yeah, these are all the important things, but I could give it to someone on your team or an owner, and they have no idea what any of it says. They read the executive summary and they say, okay, that's what we got. And there's some meat in there too, right? So doing things like that, getting involved on the front end, getting the grading contractor involved during the geotechnical phase. It's rare to see that. That's important as well.
Right.
Talking to the owner and saying, hey, we need these guys on board now so we can explain the process moving forward. Then you get a better bid out of them at that point, right? So we got to get involved at all phases.
And I love that you guys do that. And I remember when you came in here, it's easy for us to say they don't know what they're doing or until we look at the project through their eyes.
Sure.
And what you're being asked to do and what the expectation is of your team from the client. So having that experience in that relationship allows our team, our estimators, our project managers to be able to see a site through your eyes.
Sure. And that goes both ways. There were some questions
and vice versa.
And that that I was like, wow, I never thought that you would be even looking for that. That's important. Maybe we need to bold that or underline it or put it in red writing or whatever. That's the important part for you. And that needs to be important for us when we're writing these reports.
Absolutely. So 11 years, you've seen, it seems probably, it's not that long of a time, but you've seen a lot of change in the industry just in 11 years.
Absolutely.
What are you seeing? What are your thoughts on where the industry's going and some of the positive changes that are happening?
Yeah, so when I first started on, when I was in my internship, that was right before 08, 09 and kind of the downturn of the economy. And again, we came out of it. I think we're stronger. I think we learned our lesson from that, and you can kind of see it today as well. But the construction industry has built and built and built off that, and we've gained a ton of positive momentum. And we're in one of the hottest markets in the country, being in Charlotte. So I think there's a advantage for us being here local to Charlotte and just what we've got and the types of jobs that we've got, the types of people coming, to Charlotte. I think that's a huge advantage for us, just our geography, and then the experience that we got. All those guys that have been doing it for 50 years, that have been in Charlotte, they're still here and they're still working, and they're doing good projects for the city.
All right, you're going to have to stop promoting Charlotte so much. You're going to bring people from all over the place.
True.
They're going to say, all right, we need to head to Charlotte.
Yeah, if you're listening from outside of Charlotte, forget all that.
It's not that great.
That's right.
You'll hate it here.
Yeah, that's right. Hoopa does all the grading, so don't come to Charlotte.
Josh, what do you say to that person that's just joined your team, and let's say they were sitting at home and they Googled what profession do I need to be in, and they end up in your office and part of your team. Like, how do you coach them through some of this, and what advice do you give that next generation of construction leaders?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, and I'm heavily involved on the internships that we do. I do mock interviews for UNC as an alumni, for Charlotte as an alumni. So I like the giving back portion of that. And that's not necessarily just for the engineering department, but we do it for the construction management department and anybody in the construction phase. Because there are folks in that stage where I was not too long ago who didn't know what construction was. They just knew that they wanted to go to school, or they had to go to school. That's what they were told to do, and that's what they're doing. So I have that conversation with them. You don't have to know, but you have to listen. Kind of like I said before, it's not about telling your story. And I know that's what I'm here to do today, but I want to listen to everybody's story in the room before I tell mine, because I'm going to learn from that before I, start trying to teach. So I ask them, where they're from, what they do, all that kind of stuff in that process. And then a few of the guys are like, hey, this is a mock interview, right? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like, we're just talking here. This is a mock interview. So, kind of giving back, letting them know that I've been in their shoes before, and then that the path isn't as far as they think it is, as long as they know how to listen and work hard.
What a great message. What a great message. And I love that you're still going back and you're feeding into those students and you're giving the opportunities for internships like you had that gives you the exposure to the job.
That's right.
To the work. And I think that the narrative is beginning to change.
Sure.
I really think we're starting to see the needle move on that. Next month is Career and Technical Education Month. And our tech schools and the value of those, I think people aren't looking at that and saying, all right, well, that's plan B.
Sure.
They really see an opportunity there to go get some education and technical skills that will allow them to thrive in their career or in college if they decide to stay in it. So
that's right.
I think we're starting to see it change a little bit. Are you seeing that too?
Sure, a little bit, yeah. And again, everybody wants to do something that they can sit behind a computer and they can do from home and kind of steer that direction. But there's still a need for people in the field, and there's people out there that want to be in the field. And it doesn't have to be in the field, blood, sweat, and tears, 60 hours a week. There's different opportunities to be in the construction industry where you're not, wiping the mud off your brow every day, for lack of a better word.
Right.
So,
right.
There's opportunities for that across the board. And I think getting that out in front of the technical colleges or the high school kids to know, hey, it's not a bad thing to be out working with your hands. That's a good thing. You know? And you can do it from any level. You can be, in the field, or you can be in the office, or you can do a combination of the both.
Right. You want to be in the dirt, we got those jobs.
Exactly.
But if that's not your thing, we've got those jobs too.
Sure, exactly. And that's all of construction, kind of like how you laid it off. The ECS, Hoopa, we have all of the above. Are we a construction company? Partially, sure. Do we do other things? Absolutely. So we can get you in and fit you in different places.
So kicking off a new year, you're actually the first podcast of 23, by the way.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
I don't have an award or anything to give you, but it's kind of a big deal.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should have worn a different shirt.
No, that's good. You're promoting. That's
okay.
good. But so, all right, we're heading into a new year. What are you excited about in 23? And on the flip side of that, what are you a little bit nervous about?
Sure. I wouldn't do myself any justice, and I'll answer this question from a bit technical standpoint also. But I wouldn't do myself any justice if I didn't mention the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan.
I was going to ask you. You think they're going to do it?
I don't know. I hope so. As a true
Who have you got in the Super Bowl?
I would love to see the Eagles and the Bills.
Okay.
I don't know if the Eagles can win that game though, but I think it'll be a cool game. But as a true Eagles fan,
Did you have TCU in the national championship game?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I think
If you did, I was definitely not going with your Super Bowl
that's
picks.
right. Yeah, no, I did not. I thought Ohio State was going to get there, and then
Yeah.
it probably would have been a little bit of a better game if Ohio State.
And that was
wasn't
tough.
there.
That was hard to see. All right, so
But-
Eagles fan.
But anyway, so I'm a huge Eagles fan. I wouldn't do myself any justice. We're recording this the week before playoffs start, and they have the bye. I hope that they get into the Super Bowl. That'll be an awesome thing. I hope they win the Super Bowl. But as a true Eagles fan, I'm pessimistic about all of it. So they're going to lose the first round. But so I'll get to your question on a serious note.
So I'm sure Eagles fans across the world are watching this right now.
Sure.
So, Caroline, we've got to make sure that we get this out ahead of the game. Okay? We got to get Josh's.
Yeah, my prediction out.
All right.
Yep, and then it will be the best of the year so far. But anyway, so as far as the back to on topic, so positive things, positive outlook for the year. There are a ton of projects coming to Charlotte, kind of like we mentioned. I went to a crew event earlier this week where they were talking about the corridor. And again, forgive me if you're not from Charlotte, but if you are, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's Uptown and there's the South End, and then there's kind of a little stretch of valuable property in between the two, and they're looking to develop that. Now, from a earthwork standpoint, not much going on there, but from the city of Charlotte and bringing people in, that's huge, right? So they're making the Uptown footprint larger. What's that going to do? That's going to bring more people in. It's going to make the suburbs better, and all the surrounding areas are going to grow. So just listening to that, or just earlier this week, and I kind of alluded to it before, just Charlotte in general, we're in a good place here that's going to be developed, and that we're bringing people in. And so that's good for the construction industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's ongoing talks, and I don't think it's a surprise to anyone about the possibility of a recession coming. But this bubble that we've created over Charlotte, I'll say, with the development that we do have, the stuff that's on the books that haven't kicked off yet, maybe it'll soften or lessen the blow a little bit from a local standpoint as opposed to what's going on across the country.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think we're in a very, very strong market.
Yep.
There's still a lot of pent-up demand here. And so I think, you mentioned the R word, but, if that is the case, then we're in a pretty good place
I think so too.
right now. And it's got a lot of opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, I think
There
so
we go
too.
again, promoting Charlotte.
That's right.
We got to stop.
That's right.
So what are you nervous about?
What do
Was
you
it the
mean?
R word in
think-
2023?
I think a little bit. There's always the unknown.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think we learned from our past mistakes as a country,
Yeah.
and what happened then, and we're taking the steps to not do that this time around. But there's always something else that would come up that we don't even know about yet that could happen. So we just prepare ourselves the best we can, and then work through it. That's all we can do.
We were talking about that at lunch today, that the one thing that I hope we did learn from the past year and even the year before that is what we can't do is stop.
That's exactly right.
And I think we're still experiencing some of the problems that came with just stopping everything for 2 to 3 months. That was probably the worst mistake that we made.
Right, and hopefully we learn from that. Again, just completely slamming on the brakes. I mean, you can't just stop a train in 2 seconds, right?
Right.
And then starting the train back up is more difficult than it was stopping it. So we got to keep the train rolling.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, so one more question.
Sure.
You've got a lot of contractors that listen to the podcast here.
Sure.
What would you like to tell them about how that relationship between companies like yours and the contractor can become better? What can we do to make that partnership stronger, like we've been able to enjoy between our companies? How does someone do that?
Yeah, I think the best thing is to not be afraid to listen, and I think that's been a thing I've said a couple of times, but not only from a professional standpoint, but when you're working with other contractors, subcontractors, all the alike, just listen. It may be a bad idea, but just listen to it. Talk to them about the good ideas or the positives of what they did. But just everybody coming to the table, and I sound like a kumbaya, don't I?
That's all right.
Yeah, but everybody coming together and just working together and understanding that it's a person on the other end of the phone or on the other end of the table. Their goal is not to sink the person on the opposite side of the table, but to work together to come towards a common goal. And then everybody listening to everybody in the room and come up with the best idea. does that mean I can't do my job or you can't do yours? No, quite the contrary. It's just a matter of figuring it out together and working forward.
I agree. And it's what I hear you saying is respect.
Sure.
And
absolutely. That's a great way
which
to put
is
it.
one of our core values here. Like, have respect, to hear the other person's side of it, to look at the project through that person's eyes, what their job is out there and what they're responsible for, and listen to each other and come up with the best solution.
That's right.
But what I also heard you say is contractors, you can never say, I've done it this way 50 years.
That's right.
Remove that line from your vocabulary.
That's right. Yeah. Because, again, like I said, I've heard that a ton of times. And guys that aren't even 50 years old have been doing it for 50 years.
Right.
Maybe I should start saying it instead of making everybody stop saying it.
There you go. Just go ahead and take it off the table.
I've been doing it for 50 years.
There you go.
If I say it first, then they can't say it back to me, right?
Well, man, you want to say anything else to your Philadelphia fans before we close up shop?
Go Birds. Like I said, I hope I just didn't jinx us. We may have to cut all that part out of it.
I think you're going to be great. We'll wait to see the score before we decide to cut it. Or not.
Yeah, that'll depend on when we can put the podcast up.
Josh, thank you for all you do. Congratulations on the success you've had in your career. And
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What a great story and a great message. And I'm sure a lot of young folks out there are listening to that and have been inspired that this is a good industry. This is a place that they can go and they can live out their dreams.
That's right. Yep. And if we all work together, listen to each other, then it's only going to get better.
Josh, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for digging in with us on this episode of Give Us the Dirt, powered by HGC. If you liked what you heard, make sure you leave us a rating and a review, and subscribe now on our Apple, Spotify, or YouTube channels so you never miss an episode. To share feedback or suggest our next guest, visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com.